The first report about the M113 APCs being provided to Ukraine appeared back in April 2022, and the first vehicles from the United States arrived in the summer. The delay was due to the need to inspect and maintain the vehicles as they were taken from the long-term storage facilities. Denmark, the United Kingdom, Lithuania, Canada, Australia and Spain were quick to join in. Italy, Portugal, Belgium, the Netherlands and Luxembourg were not far behind. I apologize if I have forgotten to mention others, but with so many M113 modifications around the world, it's almost impossible to keep track of them all. In addition, Ukraine is purchasing some MCAs by itself through the United 24 Fund and simply from the budget. In total, more than 2,000 M113s in various versions were supposed to arrive in Ukraine. However, some are still undergoing testing, preparation and transportation, so we can assume that we actually have about 1,500 in operation. In any case, this is a significant number, and since the summer of 2022, they have been actively used in all areas of this war. This is not the first major war for the M113, so all its strengths and weaknesses have long been known. The vehicle is simple, reliable, easy to maintain and repair. All important components are easily accessible, everything is standardized, all spare parts fit without adjustment and work as they should. Repairmen say that this is in sharp contrast with Soviet BMPs and BMDs, in which nothing can be repaired without a file and cursing. It is worth adding that Ukraine has launched its own production of spare parts for the M113, which significantly speeds up routine repairs and increases the percentage of combat-ready vehicles. MK is also very easy to drive, especially the A3 version with a steering yoke and a new gearbox. Crews do not require long training, encounter no tricky pitfalls, and will not drown in confusion. That is, unless they decide to cross deep water obstacles on heavier modifications. The vehicle is extremely fast, maneuverable and capable off-road. Americans love drag racing, and anything with an engine can take part in a quarter-mile race. The M113 was no exception. At the FMC factory, the A3 modification competed with the then new 600 horsepower Bradley M2A2, and MK easily pulled ahead. But it doesn't just drive well on smooth roads. According to reviews, the M113 almost never loses its shoes during sharp maneuvers, unlike its Soviet counterparts. This is a very important advantage for a vehicle whose main strengths are its speed and maneuverability, because unfortunately the armor here is frankly weak. Even later versions with additional plates cannot withstand anything more serious than a heavy machine gun, and the mine protection also doesn't meet modern requirements. On the other hand, the aluminum armor produces very few secondary fragmentation, which will be completely blocked with a spall liner.
Короче, насквозь РПГ въебало с той стороны, зашло в приборку, перед ебалом мехвода, полетело в мотор, проебало мотор, было возгорание, откинуло эти все люки нахуй. И эта малая еще приехала, привезла весь экипаж, живые все, самостоятельно домой. Вот такой вот прикол, короче. Вот все обгоревшее и продырявленное. Вот такой шутовый день.
People aren't too happy with the overly stiff suspension, which, together with equally stiff benches, leaves passengers with less than pleasant impression. Also, there were complaints about noise, but those who have traveled in both the M113 and the BMP unanimously agree that the American APC is much more comfortable. Of course, much depends on the driver. Even a civilian can easily tell the difference between a calm bus driver and someone who drives passengers like firewood. But in a combat situation, it's better to fly as fast as you can, just to get there in one piece. What is not discussed at all is the convenient access to the troop compartment. There is no MREP that can get a whole team out as quickly as the M113. It's also convenient for carrying wounded soldiers and loading bulky equipment. Finally, let's not forget that the M113 has really good mileage, which is important not so much for economy as for the ability to travel over 400 kilometers on a single fuel tank. Any combat vehicle is the result of a search for balance, and usually those providing acceptable performance at the lowest price become the most widespread. This is exactly the case of the M113. The original FMC models were produced from 1960 to 2007, and clones are assembled to this day. To replace the M113, the US military created a transporter based on the M2 Bradley with much better protection. But the old MCAs still make up about half of the total number of APCs and will remain in service until at least 2030. It was the first mass-produced combat vehicle with an armored hull made of aluminum alloy, and now it serves as the basis for other promising experiments with remote and fully autonomous unmanned control. With additional protection, including ERA or even active armor, the M113 could remain useful for a very long time. Interestingly, during US Army training at military ranges, camouflaged M113s play the role of Russian tanks and BMPs. MCAs are also actively used by law enforcement agencies. In 2008, M113s stormed a Christian radical sect's building in Texas. And Brazilian police have repeatedly used them during operations in the favelas. The M113 remains in service in 54 countries, and many of them have no plans to replace it yet. As for Ukraine, the need for protected transporters remains very high. Yes, MCA is clearly outdated, and even the best modernization options cannot fix its fundamental flaws. But besides the flaws, there are advantages and that same old soldier wisdom. The M113 may be noisy and shaky and its armor may be weak, but it is much better than riding in a volunteer pickup truck with no protection from bullets and debris, or even running on foot. According to USINT monitors, as of early May 2025, Ukraine lost 352 MCAs as destroyed, damaged or abandoned. At first glance, this seems a lot, but if you consider their total number and the level of their use in a wide variety of combat operations, it's not so bad. Moreover, it is impossible to count the lives they have saved during this time. Therefore, we would like to thank everyone who contributed to providing APCs to Ukraine's defense forces, and we thank you for watching this video. Support us, believe in Ukraine, and onwards to victory! Here, look, this is the engine from the A3 version. Turbocharger instantly gives it away. It has a nice shiny cover. But the whole engine is covered in oil, so we may assume that it doesn't feel so well. But okay, I wanted to show you how to get into M113 quickly without using the ramp. Never mind background noises, we can't ask technicians to stop working while we are filming, their hands are really full. Okay, so just for you to understand the scale of the problem, I am exactly 2 meters long. As to how wide, not quite the same. My weight is 160, maybe closer to 170 kilograms. And here it is, this compact vehicle, which can be accessed through this small door. And here goes nothing. Right. And actually, I'm in. And this is remarkable, I'm not even hitting the roof with my head. Well, I wouldn't fit here with helmet. But just for your reference, I can't really put on any standard body armor. So there's plenty of room here. But middle seats are dismounted. If those were here, I would have no room for my legs. And normal-sized soldiers also say that commander's seat gets in the way. But all in all, it would be a quite comfortable ride. Look, we have convenient handles to hold on when it gets shaky. And if we need to fold up this seat, then here you go. Well, everything is very simple, but effective.
До того ж, неможливо порахувати, скільки життів вони врятували за цей час.
Go on. Stepan, you are ruining the shot. I thought you finished. Nope.